Okay, cool. Welcome, welcome. So just a couple of quick announcements and then we'll dive in. The first is that I am no longer an employee of Opportunities Credit Union, and they were the ones who originally were hosting office hours monthly. So I stopped working for them back in January. So technically today is not an Opportunities Credit Union sanctioned event. I just want to like make that super clear. I'm coming to you as myself and as my own business. And hold on, let me let some more folks in. But that being said, I love office hours. It brings me so much joy to spend time with y'all every month. And so I'm going to continue offering these. I don't know if opportunities will pick this back up at some point. And so I welcome Jeff or Will. Sorry, I'm reading your last name. I don't know if opportunities will pick this back up at some point, and I just wanted to give you a heads up that if you have registered for previous office hours, they have your email as a result of that because it was going through their Eventbrite. And so if you receive an email from Opportunities Credit Union, that is what it would be related to. I have no idea if they will pick this back up. But for our intents and purposes, it doesn't really matter. And like I said, I'm going to continue offering these office hours. It's going to be the same time, first Thursday of every month. Yeah, go ahead, Jillian.
Do you want us to contact them to say we enjoy it and
Oh, you're
appreciate it
so
as
sweet.
a,
No, it's totally fine. We left on wonderful terms and no complaints whatsoever. So they know I did a great job. We left very amicably. It was really just that like my business has gotten so full that I can't hold that other piece for them as well. But that being said, I've decided to move us our office hours over to Humanitix. Has anyone heard of this platform? It's like an alternative to Eventbrite, and it's like I believe nonprofit run. And so a percentage of like all the ticket sales, obviously we are free, so it doesn't really impact us too much, but all a percentage of all their ticket sales go back into the community. It just feels like a more aligned platform for me personally than Eventbrite. And this was actually an office hours attendees suggestion. So I'm going to put this here and I'm going to send all the links I'm going to put in the chat. I'll send them all out via email to you, but this will be our registration link moving forward for office hours. Is that opening for everyone? Someone just like give me a thumbs up that that opened. I haven't actually tested this yet. If you don't know, I'm a very fly by the seat of your pants kind of human. So this will be our link moving forward. I hope it like is pretty seamless and easy to use. And so I just wanted to give you that. Like I said, I'll send that out in an email as well. The second thing is I just want to make sure, just because things seem to be getting increasingly difficult for a lot of us, given the new administration, given what's going on federally, particularly folks that are using federal grants. We can obviously dive into some of that today. But I just want you to know, in case you don't, if you are a Vermont resident, this link here, I am a VSAC approved school, so you can get a grant potentially to work with me for free if you're a Vermont resident. If you're not a Vermont resident and you are still looking for more like one-on-one help, just know that there's lots of other options for that as well. You can just shoot me an email. I do low-cost services, pay what you can, payment plans, all that jazz. So if you're looking for more kind of like one-on-one help, just know that that is an option. But it is absolutely my intention to continue just like providing free business coaching every single month in this container as well. Okay, so those are those updates. And then the last thing I just wanted to share, there are two free workshops coming up that I have. And I say free, it's like free to pay what you want. But I really encourage you of like, if free makes it accessible to you, like do that. You don't need to, it doesn't impact me. So don't worry if you're like, oh, technically I have some money, but I don't really want to spend it on that. Like that's totally fine. Please still come. Um, so the next one is this one in the chat I just dropped. This is on pricing. So we'll spend a whole 2 hours just diving deep into how to price things. And that one will be next week, February 11th. And then the one after that is one of my favorites. So this one will be in March, and this is all about how to start an email list. So we'll talk all about like the basics of email marketing. I've found this is relevant even for folks who have already started to do a little email marketing, even if you're like a little bit well versed in it. This is still going to be really, really useful. I talk a lot about like email sequences that would be really beneficial for you to have in your business. And then I show you how to write them pretty quickly and with relative ease. So we'll have that one coming up too. Okay. Any questions about any of those announcements? I know I kind of like flew through them. Good. Yeah. Cool. All right. Show of hands, who is new to office hours? I think I have maybe like 3 folks that haven't done this before. Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. So the way office hours works is we've got about, we have till 10:30 to hang out. We do a little round of introductions in the beginning, just so everybody kind of has context for who's in the room today. So if you have audio available to you, or if you would prefer to just type it in the chat, that's cool too. But basically, what I'm looking for is your name, if it's not already in your Zoom description, your pronouns, and then a little like a one-liner about your business. Just give us a little bit of context for what you do. And then if you came today with any specific questions, frustrations, talking points, anything that you're like, I'd really love to ask this, or I'd really love for you, Emily, to talk about this topic. We can dive into that. And that just helps me kind of build a flow for the day. Cool. And then we also do popcorn. So whoever goes, you pick the next person to go. And that gives us an opportunity to also engage a little bit further with each other. All right, so I will start. My name's Emily. I use she, her pronouns. I run an anti-capitalist business coaching business, and I work mostly with folks in their first 3 years of business. I love beginners. And I focus mostly on marketing strategies that don't require you to show up on social media. That's really like my bread and butter, and my favorite place to be is not on social media. And so I work mostly with clients on that. I also focus a lot on sales and then like offer and product development. So like figuring out what it is you actually give people, right? And so yeah, just excited to be here with you all and excited to hear your questions and dive in a little bit. I'm going to popcorn over to Hannah because you're at the top corner of me.
Hello. Yep, I'm Hannah. I use she, her pronouns. I have a printmaking business that I've had for a couple of years. And then I'm also starting today after the call a marine repair business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like finally got insured after a big
Woohoo! Congrats.
battle. Thank you. I my question that I brought today was about like essentially like having two somewhat related businesses and like keeping them like legally and like tax wise separate, but like branding together. And like, I know, Emily, you have your business coaching, but then you also have like the carpentry thing. And I'm just, yeah, I'm wondering like how to kind of, I don't want to have like two completely separate,
Totally.
like brands, but I do think they could use different marketing strategies. And I'm just like wondering how to
For sure.
meld them. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool. Do you want to popcorn us to someone else?
Oh, yeah. I'll go to Jillian. You're right next to me.
Did I? I am unmuted. Hi, I'm Jillian of Feldenkrais with Jillian Franks. I use she, her pronouns. I'm here because I met Emily at Vermont Womenpreneurs and am intrigued by the concept she has and wanted to see how she works and whether it's going to work for me. Thank you.
Cool. Any questions specific today for you, Jillian? Anything like you're working on in your business?
Anything can come up at any point.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Love it. Oh, and Jillian, can you popcorn us to someone else?
Popcorn it to Julia Wilk.
Thanks. Good to see you again, Jillian. Feldenkrais is awesome, you guys, by the way. Highly recommend. Yeah, I'm Julia Wilk, she, her. My business is Wheel Horse Web. I specialize in helping people with their WordPress sites, fixing problems, maintaining them,
Cool.
improving them, building them. Um, and yeah, I don't have a specific question. I think I was just trying to kind of get out of my isolation a little bit in a nice mentor, peer mentor type way. But I think I've been working a lot on offer and niching, and also like anything related to management or like finding people to work with is kind of a pain point right now.
Yeah.
So, love
Management in
to
terms of, do you have employees or contractors or?
just contractors. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
remote team, but
Okay, cool.
trying to kind of like get more help
Hmm.
and be good at that, at help at
Hmm.
working with
Hmm.
people. It's like kind of
Hmm.
new, even after a few
Okay,
years for me.
sure.
Um, yeah, let's go to Erin. Erin, you're on my screen.
Hello, I am Erin. I use she, her pronouns. I'm here with my 3.5-year-old son who's watching Bluey, so I'm just going to mute that in the background. Um, I am in the Upper Valley of Vermont, New Hampshire, so I'm like straddling the line, but work and live in New Hampshire. I am a yoga therapist and athletic trainer and work with people one-on-one. I was doing classes. We just had our second kid and I'm on maternity leave. I'm trying to figure out like what is my business going to look like as I get back to work? Do I want to get back to classes? Do I keep working with people one-on-one? And with that, like how do I want to continue to build my email list.
Hmm.
And then like how do I engage people? How do I grow that? How do I find new populations without I have been off of social media for a while and am like being pulled. Do I go back on? Is that how I find people? Do I find people in real life and get their emails? How do I re-engage people? Not pivot my business too much, but a little bit of who I'm working with.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's what I'm coming with.
Cool. Thanks, Erin.
And then we'll go on to Joanne.
Thanks. Thanks, Erin. Hi, I'm Joanne Endo. I use she, her pronouns. My organization that I just started is called Improvement Catalyst Coaching. So I do consulting and coaching specifically around communications, especially around storytelling, helping organizations and individuals around using storytelling to further their work, build relationships, encourage empathy. And I guess I'm here because one of the things I'm trying to figure out, so I've got work that's I always think of it as like sort of circling the airport that's just not landing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's so close, it feels so close, but it's just not quite getting there. So trying to figure out how to move that along, but also trying to decide about what kinds of things would I be willing to do for free, um, without just doing all of that because keep seeing all these interesting opportunities or ideas that I know I can't afford to take on all of them if I'm
Mm.
not going to get compensated. But what kind of balance might there be to get the experience, to do interesting work, to support some good causes and that kind of thing. So help figuring that out would be really appreciated.
Cool.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Joanne.
Let's see. Lori, you haven't gone yet, have you?
Thanks, Joanne. Lori Lisa. I am a coach for midlife women and also a retreat host, or I have my first retreat coming up at the end of March. Um, and yay!
Yeah.
Um, and sorry, she, her pronouns. And I don't necessarily have a question. And listening to all of your questions so far, I feel like I'm just going to get a lot out of listening today. And also, I have to pop off at 10, Emily, but
Yeah, no
thank you so
worries.
much. Good to
Yeah,
see you again.
good to see you too, Lori.
And Esme.
Hello, can you hear me?
It's a little muffled.
Okay, can you hear me better?
No, yep, I can hear you better now.
Yeah? Okay, I'm
Yep.
Asma. I'm from Morocco. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a business and marketing coach. mostly focusing on systems and funnels and automations. So I usually work with business owners who make around 6 to 7K, trying to scale, but wanting to work less. And this is my first time here. The
Welcome.
reason why, thank you, I'm joining is because I took a break from my business for a few months and I lost my grandma and it was a little bit difficult to like go back to this. And now going back, even though systems are working and there are, I mean, I'm getting clients and everything, it just feels a little bit lonely. I don't know if anybody can relate, but I feel a little bit lonely online. So I thought it would be nice to put myself with other people who understand business, especially that in my country, not a lot of women are business owners. So I don't feel like we're speaking, or I don't feel like people understand what business means or what I go through every day. So just having some people who can speak the same language and understand all of it feels good. So this is why I'm joining today. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And it's Asma?
Asma.
Asma. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Oh, and do you want to
And
popcorn us? Yep.
yeah, Will.
Hi, Will Jeffries, he, him, and I met Emily through my fiance, Elle, who works at the Center for Women and Enterprise. And then we've had several touch points since and always appreciated them. So my business is Blumenthal Enterprises, and I help early stage founders who are developing both their business model, but also helping them to understand their own personal goals and their impact goals and how that aligns, how you build a business that can both be successful and also aligned with your own goals. And that is a range. It can be everything from personal coaching all the way to business strategy, to helping develop your business model canvas and validate that in market research, to helping people actually set up their systems for sales and project management and delivery, but came from a background in mechanical engineering. And what I'm looking for today, the last few months have been a pretty heavy downturn in terms of people trying to do anything new or innovative because of the massive uncertainty. And so just looking for how to help clients to manage through that uncertainty. I'm pivoting some of my offerings to something more flexible, a little more coaching focused to help people make sure that they're taking care of themselves and their own lifestyle and still aligning that with their business. So finding what's the next way forward in this very uncertain time.
Yeah, thanks, Will. And then I think Sharon's just listening in the background, but Opal, are you in a place where you want to introduce yourself? Totally cool if you're not. It's okay. Just trying to find a graphic real quick. Oh, I found it for you, Will. That's what I was thinking about. Great. Okay, Opal, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat at some point, feel free to do that, or go ahead and unmute yourself at any point. Right. And Sharon, also feel free at any point to pop in if that feels helpful for you. Oh, thank you, Sharon. Okay, Sharon, I love the letters from your child. And so Sharon is in New Haven. There's a therapist mostly serving Greater Chicago and a parent ambassador with the New Haven Early Childhood Council. You don't accept federal funds, and the local stuff you do is mostly state funded, but you know you're going to benefit from learning how everyone continues to adapt in this administration, particularly if you're serving in or communities with populations by recent EOs. No particular question today. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you. No, that's totally fine. You're good. I think we got the gist of it. Excuse me. Okay, I think I'll start with oh, hi, Opal. You're having some connectivity issues. No worries. You're in Richmond and you're working to start your business helping small sustainable fashion businesses grow. Yes, awesome. Okay, cool. All right, I think I'm just gonna kind of start with top down and we'll start to weave it through. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the idea of two businesses. This is also relevant if anyone, just like quick show of hand, does anyone have like multiple offers that are kind of different from one another? No, a little bit, maybe some. Yeah, Lori's like, hello. Yeah, okay, so this would be relevant.
Within the
Yeah,
same business, just to
yeah,
clarify.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is like relevant too. I think if you have like there was a point where I had like multiple different revenue streams inside my business, right? Right now I've consolidated down into just one. But so this advice is relevant whether you have like two totally separate businesses or you're looking at multiple revenue streams within one. Um, but basically what we want is have you heard of Hannah, have you ever heard of the idea of like a branding tent? No, it's also like and you can kind of Google this term branding tent and you'll find some actually when you Google it, you'll mostly find tents that have been branded. So you might have to do a little bit of digging, but if you ask ChatGPT what is a branding tent, you might get a better results. Welcome, Rose. Nice to see you. Rose, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat and if there's any specific questions you have for today, just let me know in there. But the idea is basically like when I look at your art business and then I look at like, is it ship repair? Would that be like a fair category? Okay. If I look at those two things, if I try to like put a tent or even we could think of even like an umbrella over both of those, if we zoom out a little bit, like what do those things have in common? And this is the same thing if you have multiple offers, what do those things have in common? And that's where we kind of want the brand to live, right? So we've got this narrative that weaves these two things together. For instance, for me, I since have not been doing much carpentry work just because my business coaching has been so full. But the idea of like being made for more, right? I am made for more than just sitting behind a computer. I am made for more than just working every day to earn a living. I'm made to move my body, which is like where that carpentry comes in. I'm made to to earn a living that is like respectable to myself, right? That's where my business coaching comes in. So I'm thinking of like what is something that kind of captures the essence of both those businesses. In terms of like from a legal standpoint, you're probably going to want two separate entities, only because I'm guessing that the ship repair stuff is going to require some like some sort of protection in terms like some sort of liability insurance. Like if you really fuck up and you break someone's boat, like we don't want them to be able to sue you for everything you have. Whereas like your art probably doesn't require any liability insurance, I'm assuming, unless you're like physically going and hanging your art or doing your art in people's homes. My guess is like you're probably exempt from that. So for me, I had an LLC for my business coaching because there is liability there, right? If someone feels like I steered them wrong and they lost a bunch of money, I could get sued for that. So I want liability insurance there. But for the carpentry, I was actually able to operate as a sole proprietor because it's just me and I wasn't hiring anyone. And I just paid for insurance on the side for that business. Have you done any work with Vermont Law School yet, Hannah?
I have not, no.
Okay. Are you familiar with the grant program with them?
No.
Okay, let me just pull that up real quick. This is true for anyone that's in Vermont. If you have a business in Vermont, you qualify for this grant. And it's 1 hour of free legal education and then up to 10 hours of paid time with an attorney that you do not have to pay for. These folks are truly wonderful. Nicole is the woman that runs this program. So I'll throw that in the chat. You can tell them I sent you.
Awesome. Thank you.
And yeah, absolutely. So you just fill out the intake form. They'll schedule a consultation. You'll go through your 1 hour of legal education. For a lot of folks, they answer basically all the questions they need in that hour. And then if you needed like a contract to be written up or terms of an agreement or I had a client who needed to get a patent for something and like they are able to apply those 10 hours of work with an attorney to that and not have to pay for it. So that's pretty cool. So I would definitely check that out and just figure out like yeah, how do you know, and then in terms of like your expenses, you just want to make sure you're really tracking those separately, right? And keeping those separate. Whether or not you need, it would be a good question for them of whether or not you need a whole separate bank account for that business. I'm not sure. So I would check in on that and just make sure that you're not getting into like a commingling of assets situation.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the branding and like the marketing, you're absolutely correct that is everyone familiar with the idea of like B2B versus B2C? Is anyone like, I don't know what that word is? Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, Jillian, they do love to be busy down there. So the idea is like with B2C marketing, right? We're selling to an individual, so we're selling direct to a consumer. And so that would be Hannah's art business, right? Hannah is selling prints to individual people. That type of business model does really well with organic marketing and paid marketing. So that's where you're going to find like Instagram to be really useful. That's where you're going to find an email list to be really useful. That's where you're going to find like showing up at a market to be useful. Those kind of like direct to consumer chains versus a B2B business, which is like starting to get, we can kind of argue that like part of Hannah's ship repair business is still B2C, right? She would be reaching out to individual boat owners. But I think you're also going to be working correct through like the dock itself.
Yeah, right now I'm mostly
At least in the yeah, exactly. So this is a little bit more B2B. And so Hannah posting on Instagram, like, hey, I can like work at your dock and repair your boats is like probably not going to go anywhere, right? And like also the amount of humans who have boats that are physically close to Hannah is probably also a limited pool to some extent. And we might not easily find them on Instagram or on LinkedIn or on YouTube or something like that. Those are folks that B2B businesses, we tend to rely really heavily on networking, right? And so we're like, we need to go out and make relationships with people. So one thing you could think about is like, personally, I love structure and like spreadsheets and things to keep track of things. And so what I would probably consider, particularly with the ship repair business, is having some way to keep track of your networking efforts and your marketing efforts and whether or not they're working. So I can show you kind of an example, and this is true for literally anyone in their business, of like a way that we could kind of track this. So this is a client of mine that's a bookkeeper. And basically what we're looking at is like we're keeping track of all the people that he's reaching out to. We're looking at the date when he reaches out to them. We just added this column of like when do they actually become a paying client. And then this is helpful. We can come up with all the different types of marketing strategies we want to use. So for this client, he was like, I have no interest in any sort of social media whatsoever. Like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to build. He also didn't want to build an email list. And so we were looking really at Front Porch Forum. So like posting in Front Porch Forum that he was available. We were looking at a few low cost ad spends. Like Craigslist has a $5 ad you can run. And that was actually working really well for him. He also joined BNI, if you're familiar with like a BNI network. So like something where you like pay to play networking. And then we were banking really heavily on referrals. We were like, how do we get his referral network to be super strong? So we've got these options he can click through. We also wanted to start pushing like different types of businesses for him. So we noticed that there weren't a lot of bookkeepers that were advertising that they helped nonprofits. Their books are more complicated. It makes sense. So we can think about that too. Like for Hannah, we might get to a place where we're like, how many of these folks are coming through the dock itself versus how many are private owned boats versus how many are like, I don't know if people like co-own a boat or like if there's like a community boat or like something, we could come up with different categories. And then we're tracking the outcome, right? So like, was this, my hope for Hannah would be that she's in a position where she could get a lot of repeat clients from the ship repair, right? Like every time something breaks, they come to her, similar to like a mechanic. I don't go to a different mechanic every time my car has an issue. I keep going to the same mechanic, assuming I like them, right? So looking at whether these are like one-time events, are these reoccurring clients, or did it simply not work? Or we don't know yet. They haven't come through yet. And then obviously a column here for notes of like keeping track if it is a referral, like this referral came from me, right? So we're looking at like where did those referrals come from? This is particularly useful if you are going to work, if you are going to really focus on referrals, which I think like for Hannah, that's going to be a no-brainer in my book. I'd be like referrals, absolutely. I would want to keep track of like who's actually referring, because then I want to like go like dump love on those referral partners, right? I want to like maybe once a quarter, I buy them something nice, or I give them a piece of my artwork, or I bring them a cup of coffee, right? Like just something simple that says like, I see you, I see the effort you're putting in. I really appreciate that effort. And I would love to continue doing that, right? So we can kind of, for me, like when someone refers a client and they sign on for 4 months, I give that referral a free coaching call, right? So I'm like, thank you for bringing that referral to me. Here's something in exchange for it. So this is something I would consider putting together. I think this is good regardless of like your business model and what you're working with, but keeping track. One thing that I've noticed, like particularly for this client, is sometimes he'll come to calls and he's like, I've done nothing. Like nothing's working. I haven't done anything. And I'm like, okay, well, let's open the spreadsheet. And then it's like, oh no, like you did this and this and this in this month. Like we have concrete data that shows that some of these things are working, right? And we're not left to just like a fleeting gut instinct of like how business is going. We can kind of track that a little bit more robustly. Any questions about that? Does that make sense? Yeah. In terms of like marketing, like for instance, Hannah, I think these things could live both on your website. And what I would do is usually what I do with like the homepage is I prioritize like either what's going to pay me the most, what's most available, or what I'm most excited about. So that's going to be like front and center on the website on the homepage. But then I'm going to start to pepper in these other things that folks can do, right? And then I would have a separate page for ship repair from like your art. But I absolutely think they could live on the same website. We might have to play a little bit with like your website domain. I don't know if it like feels, what is your website domain?
Yeah, so my website is hgobrien.com because Hannah
Perfect.
O'Brien was
Yeah.
taken. And I'm rebranding the art business to OB Designs because OB is like a nickname for O'Brien.
Yeah.
And then I was also thinking for the marine repair business of doing OB Marine.
I love that.
Yeah, so like it fits together, but like OB Designs and Marine feels really long.
Yeah, that's long. Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with your current URL. Like, I think that could house both of those under it. The other thing is we just want to be like, for instance, with like my coaching program is called Made for More. And I have to constantly remind myself of like, make that name knowable, right? Like, so that when you get to my site, you're not like, what the hell is Made for More? Like I want to constantly be referring to it and making that term feel really, just really known and like makes sense. So even like in my application to work with me, it's still titled like the Made for More application. And then I have a line under it that says Made for More is my anti-capitalist one-on-one business coaching program. Right. And so I'm like kind of defining it for you so that you know you're in the right place. So we could work on that too, of just like making sure that you're using the name for each of those businesses regularly.
Yeah. Would you recommend? So like I know for your business is now Emily Ely Creative.
Yeah.
Would you recommend like a kind of almost like a parent, like OB Creative or something like that, where the other two fall underneath it?
I mean, I think that's what is it right now? It's HG O'Brien.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, I wish it was Hannah O'Brien because then they would just easily
I
follow me with
know.
it.
I know.
I'm like, damn you, URL people.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, you could think about like what is a word that captures, because I like that it's H, so it would be OB creative and OB, what was the other one?
Marine.
Marine.
Or OB
Um,
yeah, and OB Marine.
we could think about like what's a word that captures both of those. Like that was why I shifted from Emily Ely coaching, which to be honest is still what my LLC is. I have like yet to go through the process of shifting that.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't just do coaching anymore. I do a lot of like curriculum development, facilitation, and teaching. And I felt like coaching was kind of limited. So I like shifted that to Emily Ely Creative, and I felt like that held a bigger bucket. So I would play around with like, what's a word that allows you, if we can't just use your name, what's a word that would allow you to drop both of those underneath?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, totally. All right. So I'm going to shift over to the like continue building your email list and finding new folks. And I think this is relevant also for like, Joanne, your question around like work that's not landing, like we can kind of weave all of this in together. So the thing that like at any point in time in your business, regardless of your business type, you have two different buckets of humans. You have humans who have never met you before, they do not know you exist yet. And then you have the humans who know you, right? And the humans who know you are the people that are like your Instagram followers. They're the people on your email list. They're paying clients, right? These are all people that have like interacted with you in some way or another. And then we have the folks who have truly never met you before. Most folks, assuming like your business model and your offer is pretty sound, we can like do a pretty good job talking to the people that already know us, hopefully. Sometimes we have room for improvement there. Where it gets kind of sticky is like, how do we find new humans? And I think it's really important to constantly be evaluating whether or not you really need new humans. Because sometimes I get clients and I'm like, you have plenty of humans and we haven't actually sold to them yet. Like we haven't actually done a great job of selling to them. So I don't want you to worry about finding new humans. I want you to get really good at selling to the humans you have. So first step is always like, are you really maximizing the folks that already love you? Like, are you really talking to them? Are you really making sure they feel seen? Are you really, yeah, maximizing those efforts there, right? And like getting the most out of that bucket of work you've already done before we go and find new people. I think sometimes the feeling of like, for me, there's like moving someone from being like an email subscriber or an Instagram follower to a paying client or customer requires a level of intimacy that can sometimes feel scary. And it can sometimes we feel uncertain of how to do that, or we don't feel like we have the skill set yet of how to do that. And so that could be a thing, Joanne, of just looking at like, what does that sales process look like? And I would start to get curious on like, why aren't those people landing, right? Like, why aren't we seeing those sales happen? Is something off with the offer? Is there something off with the way that we're talking about the offer? Are we talking to the wrong humans? Like, start to get really critical and look for data that supports why that's happening, right? I don't ever want to be just like, these are just the wrong people, right? I think sometimes we need a little self-reflection of like, is it me or is it them, right? And if it is me, like what am I doing to work on that? And it's okay if it's you. Like it doesn't mean you're a shitty human. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It's just like if sales aren't happening, something's off, right? Like something's not working. I think of it as like when we go out on a first date, if you don't get a second date, like there was a reason, right? And it doesn't mean anyone's to blame. It just means like something was off and that's okay. And sometimes it's worth exploring of like what was off. Why didn't that work out? I actually just got a really wonderful survey. A woman that I'm on her list just ran like a sales promotion. And I had clearly opened all of the emails and read them all, but I had not purchased. And I received a survey after that was like really explicitly asking me why I didn't purchase. And it wasn't like from a place of like judgment or like she was genuinely curious of like, why didn't the sale go through? Why did you choose not to purchase? Were you not ready? Was it too expensive? Did you not understand what it was? I actually took screenshots of it so I can send it to you if that feels helpful. How she asked those questions. But I thought that was like, I thought that required an enormous amount of humility to be willing to go out and say, like, I see that that didn't work. Can you help me understand why it didn't work? Like, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I think it makes you a way better business owner. I think it's going to make you more successful moving forward. So, I would get curious of like, why aren't we converting the folks that we already have if we're not seeing success there? And then in terms of like finding new humans, yeah, absolutely, Lori. Let me just put it, I'll put it in my notes here to send. Um, and then in terms of like finding new humans, this is why Instagram had been so successful for so long, was it put you in front of an enormous amount of humans who have never met you before, right? And you didn't have to pay for it. And as long as you made good content, you would be put in front of those people, right? That is no longer the case. That is not how Instagram works now. And I know there are a lot of folks out there that are saying that it still works that way and that you just need to try harder and you just need to post more frequently and you just need to post better content. But the reality is like that Instagram has been completely overrun by paid advertising. So unless you're paying, you are not going to be seen there. The only way that that is not true is if you had already built a really large following, and I mean like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. Those folks are still seeing some success. But even those folks, I have one client I spoke with yesterday, they have 35,000 followers, and she's like, it's crickets when I sell. And she's got great shit, and it has sold very well in the past on Instagram. Listen, she has not changed anything. Like, I don't think that people don't like her stuff anymore. I think nobody's seeing it, right? Even with that large following. So this isn't to say like I want to be really careful. I'm not saying like don't bother, don't try. If you like Instagram, if you have community there, if it feels fun for you to make content there, absolutely keep doing it. Like that's great. I'm happy for you. And if you're not seeing the results that you would like to be seeing, I really want it to be clear that like that's not likely on you. I mean, yes, it's possible you're making shitty content. I'm sure we could look at that, you know. But the more likely is like you're not paying to play, and that's why it's not working. Right. And so then you can decide, do I want to pay to play? Or do I want to find a different way of like finding new humans? And this is where it gets kind of tricky, right? Because it's like simply sending really dope newsletters every week is not going to find you new humans. I mean, some people might forward those emails on to a friend and maybe we get like a few extra subscribers coming in. But overall, like you're not going to grow your list merely by emailing your list, right? We have to find new ways to get folks to come onto the list. And this is tricky, right? It's like there isn't a free, very easy solution for that right now. I think we'll continue to see like as new platforms like Blue Sky and these other platforms that are rising up, I think we'll see if things start to shift. I don't think there's any harm in like signing up for these new platforms and kind of exploring them and seeing if you like hanging out there. But overall, like for me, my strategy has been there's a couple of things that are still working really well in terms of getting new folks on your email list. One is like physically getting yourself out in front of groups of humans that you do not know. So that could be like, I'm going to show up at a conference. I'm going to show up at a networking event. I'm going to um, for me, it looks like workshops, right? I am like, this is a huge reason why I do workshops for CWE is that they have an email list that is not mine. And their email list is regional, right? And so it's outside of Vermont. It puts me in front of new people. A lot of like most months, at least half the group is new to me. And so that is one way that I've found. Now, it is a hell of a lot slower than if I like had a post go viral or I paid for advertising, right? Like this is going to be a much slower trickle than what it used to be, or like what I used to be able to do. But I'm like, I don't have to make constant content on Instagram. I don't have to feel like shit posting on Instagram. And hopefully this is like coming back to Joanne's topic. If I'm doing a really good job of turning, if I get 5 new email subscribers a month and I'm doing a really, really good job on my email list, at least like 2 or 3 of those people should become clients, right? And so like kind of is looking a little bit more at like a quality versus quantity. So I might not be growing by hundreds of email subscribers a month, but if my quality is really, really good on those 5 that are coming in, that should be all the impact I need, right? And so thinking about like this is the other thing that like sometimes we might have really high, like a high follower count on Instagram, but like, are those people actually buying shit from you? Right. So we want to make sure that where we're putting our efforts in terms of marketing is actually yielding into sales. And that's where like something like that tracker is really helpful, right? So I want to be able to see, for me, every single time I send a newsletter, I get a client inquiry. If that's not happening, then like I've missed the mark somewhere. I like something's happened, right? I'm not saying the things I need to be saying. I'm not being helpful in the way that's I need to be helpful. So like that's really good information for me. That's data for me to input. Again, that doesn't mean I'm a shitty person. It doesn't mean that like I messed up, right? Like it has no reflection on me as a human being. It just means that one thing I wrote like didn't land. That's okay, right? I get to try again. I get to write another newsletter next week. That's all possible and fine. That was a lot of talking. Any questions, thoughts on that? Anyone want to share any reflections on like that topic for them? Go for it,
I
William.
would speak a little bit to that if you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So a lot of my business in the past, about 80% plus, I would say, has been through referrals, which has worked out really well. And through the
Yeah.
last year, and I've had a number of projects and clients lined up for the end of the year and going into the new year.
Mm.
And then after the election, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that fell off. People who had been planning to move forward with projects or believed they had funding lined up or simply had to pull back from the uncertainty of everything going on. And so I'm curious how to address that
Mm-hmm.
response, which what I've been hearing essentially is, yeah, we really need what you're offering, but we can't afford to invest in that right now
Yeah.
because we don't have enough information about where things are going right now, or
Yeah.
we don't know what our own financial situation is looking like. So
Mm-hmm.
pivoting to try and offer more flexible terms, smaller bites,
Mm-hmm.
but just curious, A, is that something other people had experienced? And also B, what you would recommend to address that kind of feedback from clients, not
Yeah.
necessarily not landing, but just
Yeah.
sheer
Yeah. I
uncertainty
don't
of
have
investing
money.
in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just knowing where things are going.
If anyone wants to speak to that, go for it. Otherwise, I'm gonna pull up a graphic that is relevant to this. All right, I'm gonna pull this over. Can you see this? Let's see if I can zoom in here. Okay. So this is first of all, like I just want to reiterate that you're like absolutely not alone, Will. And there are like so many people that are experiencing this. I think especially consultants are seeing this right now. Anything that's basically not a have to have, but is a nice to have is like challenging right this second, right? And so we have a couple options. You're doing some of them already, which is like, if someone comes to me, and I do this sometimes with coaching, like if someone comes to me and they're like, I really need your help. I really want to work with you. You're the human I want to spend my time with, and I cannot afford your services. Often my first question is like, what can you afford? Right? Like, what is your budget? How much money do you have to put into this? If the answer is zero, obviously that gets a little tricky. And so then like we can cross some other bridges, but oftentimes people are like, I can spend this much. Like I have this much to give you. And so then it's up to me to like either say yes to that if I feel like I can swing that, or can I like change the terms of the package so that it meets that amount, right? Um, I had this happen the other day. It was like, and it was actually kind of surprising. I thought they were going to ask for like way less money than what they ended up coming back with, which is a good reminder to like when someone says their budget is tight or they don't have the money, don't jump ahead and offer a specific discount. Wait to see like what they can pay, right? Like because you might you might be overestimating what they or underestimating what they can pay. And so, give them a second to like think it through and work through their budget. You particularly, Will, are in the business of helping businesses make more money. So that is to our advantage, right? Of like, can we also have ways of kind of show, don't tell that X dollar amount of investment will hopefully equal Y outcome on the other side. Not that we need to get like super nitty gritty into like, I can promise you a 5x ROI, like we don't need to go there, but like just showing like other clients that invested in these services were able to do this as a result. But in terms of just like feelings of uncertainty in general, I've been really liking this graphic on these ideas of like what I'm in control of, what I can influence, and what I'm concerned about, right? And so just making sure that like sometimes it can be really easy to get into this big outer ring, right? We can move there really quickly. And with our current administration, like that's actually their whole strategy is keeping us in this like zone of out of control, right? Like I'm going to sign so many executive orders in such a short period of time that you literally can't even keep track of what's going on so that you feel just completely out of control. And so for us, like doing this self inventory, understanding what we are responsible for and figuring out like what are the outcomes as a result of like our input, right? So this is what I thinking about each day. What am I in control of? I'm in control of updating my spreadsheet. I'm in control of all the inquiries I send out to clients. I'm in control of how to speak to those clients. I'm in control of my offers and what I'm offering, right? Like there's a lot that we're currently in control of. And then thinking about like what can I influence, right? Like what can I start to dip a toe into? And then what are the areas that like I really have some concern about and like I'm worried about and I'm going to acknowledge those worries, but also still holding on to like what I'm really in control of right now. I think this is helpful just in business in general. It can be really easy for us to like jump super far out and think about all the things we're not in control of. And so coming back in the day to day to focusing like for me, like I'm in control of my email list. I can send an email whenever I want to, right? And I can control the narrative in that email. I can control what I'm saying there. And then I am not in control of whether or not someone opens it or reads it. I'm not in control of whether or not they click on the link to book a call with me, but I am in control of what I talk about in that email. And for me, like today, that's enough, right? Like that's enough for me to be in control of. Thoughts around that?
I think that's such a great reminder for everything that's happening.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and that to narrow our focus uh, at different times.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when
Mm-hmm.
you're in your office, you're focused on your business.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
uh, and then if you transition to another space, you might give yourself permission to focus on something else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah. There's a great podcast episode by Alice Boys, and it's about like the idea of quote productivity, but not in the sense of like maximize your productivity. But she talks about how every time you change tasks in the day, you lose 22 minutes every time you transition. And so, and not like loss, like shame on you for losing things, but like just like that time is eaten up, it's spent. And so like if we can kind of try to focus on what we're in control of, focus on the tasks at hand, and then like give, like you said, Jillian, is like giving ourselves space to like, I listen to the news for 10 minutes every day. That's it. It's 10 minutes. I listen to the Democracy Now. Like, what is it? I even pulled it up for you guys in case anyone wants this. But there's like the headlines one. It's 10 minutes on Democracy Now. And like that is the news I take in, and then I'm done. Right. And so it's not peppering in all throughout the day, just completely dysregulating my body and like throwing all my work into haywire. Right. It's like I'm in control of how I'm consuming my news. I am not in control of what they are saying in the news, right? I'm in control of how I listen to it, when I listen to it, how often I listen to it. But just like kind of focusing on like those pieces that you are in control of, right? Like you do get to dictate when you absorb certain types of information, or if you absorb them at all. Yeah, Asma, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question similar to what you just answered, but I have a second question that I would love to
Yeah,
ask. So, I get my clients from Facebook, most of them
cool.
from Facebook groups.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that I've done a really good job getting clients from Facebook groups, but I feel like I didn't do a good job building a community in my own Facebook group. So meaning that when I get
Mm,
when I like, I'm not a great content creator. I don't like creating content that much. I don't like posting and writing and like telling
say
stories.
those
So
say
what,
those latter sentences. It's not that you're not good at it, it's that you don't enjoy doing it. Those are
yeah,
different.
I really don't like doing it.
Yeah.
So what I usually do is like I will work on a webinar or I will do a
Mm-hmm.
launch, and that would be my material to get clients. So I
Mm-hmm.
would promote it and then get people interested in my inside my Facebook group and then sell them in the Facebook group through DMs. So I've done a good job at like having one-on-one conversations. I feel like those were set like I would sell in that way. But my Facebook group, since I've taken a break, and even before, I feel like I didn't give it that much time to build community outside of my clients, meaning the community of like paid people that I have in. And it's
Mm,
something that I really want to do now.
mm,
I want to give more and have a community that's not necessarily just my clients, but rather
mm-hmm.
just like people who are interested in my content. And so I was thinking about content that I could provide, and I
Mm-hmm.
would love some feedback on it. So currently I'm working on like a low-key launch. Like I'm launching, but it's not taking so much of my time. And I was thinking maybe I could document that for people in my Facebook group, kind of giving them like an example
Mm-hmm.
of what a launch would look like,
Mm-hmm.
this way working less. I was also thinking of providing maybe like coaching similar to this, but inside my Facebook group. But I'm wondering how that would look like. So my question is, what are some pieces of content that could be interesting for people who join my Facebook group and could help me build community inside the
Yeah.
group?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I ran a Facebook group for a little while, and I was terrible at it, so just keep that in mind. Running groups like and building community is definitely a specific skill set, and if it's not one that comes easily to you, I find that it leads to burnout really quickly. So just being mindful of like, is relationship building genuinely interesting to me? Do I like doing that? If you've ever done like the Clifton Strengths Assessment, I've found like folks that lead with relationship building strengths really like shine in these types of environments of like community building, Facebook groups, that kind of stuff. Because it's a lot of energy output, right? And so if that is not energizing for you to do that, it is usually just very depleting, and it becomes hard to maintain. So I love to hear that you're like excited about it and you want to be pouring more time into this community. And I think all these folks will really benefit from it. Immediate thoughts are like, this is a funny line, and so we have to like be careful as we walk this line, but most of us are inundated with like toxic positivity and winning when it comes to like content, right? So like most of us are experiencing high volumes of like things going well when we look at like content creators, people launching businesses, like they don't want to share the shit behind the scenes, right? They don't want to share that they're depressed or lonely or that sales didn't go well. So, just like being honest about how things are going. This is where it gets tricky. It's like I don't like the idea of monetizing like trauma or like shitty feelings. Like that doesn't feel super good to me to think through that lens. And also, if the point of sharing the shit behind the scenes is to truly make people feel seen and let them know that they are not alone in like going through their business, I'm like, cool, that's fine. That's fine with me. If you're doing it from the lens of like, I know this is going to generate sales, so I'm going to like trauma dump in my Facebook group, like, no, please don't do that. That's like not a great idea. Um, but I think like anytime my emails that are highest response rates are emails of like me sharing something hard, right? Of me sharing like when something's not working. Because then people are like, oh my God, I'm not alone. Like, you're not perfect. Your business isn't perfect. That means I get to be not perfect, right? And so I think I love the idea of sharing how the launch is going. One thing that I'll say is like, if you're going to take this approach, you don't have to share like shit that's going wrong the moment it's going wrong. Like you don't have to do that. So like um if that feels challenging or uncomfortable, like just being careful with the idea of like vulnerability and authenticity. Like it's okay to like, for instance, I had a really horrid experience. I was featured in a newspaper locally here. And after that, I had like over 100 angry white men yelling at me and calling me all sorts of names, telling me to like move to China because I was a communist. And it just got like really, really intense. And I was like, oh, I really want to be able to share this with people that like this happens and it sucks. And here's some things you could do to deal with it. But like, I was not ready to share that for at least like a month after it happened, right? Like, so you don't have to share while it's happening necessarily, just to say with the launch, like, maybe you do this launch and the launch doesn't go great, knock on wood. Hopefully that's not the case, but maybe it doesn't go great. You don't have to share live while it's happening, right? Like you can take some space, take a minute, process what happened. And then if you feel ready and you want to share and you feel like it would truly be helpful to the group to share, then like, awesome. Yeah, totally. I think to Rose's point, asking the group what they want from you is a wonderful idea. And you'll want to be really specific about how you ask it. We tend to, as humans, not respond well to like big open-ended questions. So just like, what do you want more of is like probably not going to generate either any results or results that are going to be that useful to you. But multiple choice questions are like A plus. So if you think about, you know, do you want to hear more about launching? Do you want to hear more about like how to build a Facebook group? Do you want to hear more about like give them maybe 5 topics and then you can add an other option too that they can fill in if they feel excited about that. But giving them some options to pick from, I think will take you much further than an open-ended question. Yeah.
I've done
And
that in the past. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say I've done that in the past and it worked really well. But I think since I've taken a break from the Facebook group, the engagement has been super low. So I was just
Yeah.
thinking maybe if
Yeah.
I ask the question, it's not a lot of people are going to answer. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it is true. But I think I can do it in other Facebook groups where I usually
Yeah. Yeah.
promote my
Yep.
events. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. You could do that too. And I think in your own Facebook group, like if it feels okay to be candid about why you took a break, that might feel like an authentic next step in re-engaging with the group. I find anytime I try to like gloss over like an absence, it does not tend to feel good inside my body. I honestly don't even really care too much about what it feels like for other people. It's more just like for me, it does not feel great to like gloss over absences or like, like for instance, when I had my kid or like things like any type of absence, whether it's like grief related or not, it for me, it feels good to acknowledge that absence and then like kind of move from there. So it doesn't feel like I'm just like coming out of left field being like, hi, let me tell you about launching. It just like kind of feels like, whoa, what? Where did you
Yeah.
come from? Yeah.
Mhm.
The other thing I was going to say that in my experience is always really helpful is any sort of like done for you work. So I often offer to like write my clients emails for them because that shit is just hard. It's hard writing like newsletter emails, it's hard writing sequences, it's hard writing sales emails. And so like often I'll offer to like write the first one or write a draft for them or write an outline for them. So any sort of like plug and play, done for you type work could also be like an outline for a sales page or, anything that you're like, I know this part sucks and everyone has to do it. That kind of stuff, like giving some of that away for free, can go a long way.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, Rose, I love that. Always giving like a little bit of context for why you're asking these things. Yeah, like so in the Facebook groups when you post there, just saying like, hey, I'm re-engaging with my business. I've been on, and for the other people's groups, like I don't think you necessarily have to give a ton of context, but you could just say like, I had to take a break from my business for a little bit. I'm re-engaging and it feels like a really relevant time to ask, like, what are people working on? Like,
Mhm.
what questions do you have right now? Like I really want to make sure that I'm making stuff that feels really useful to you. I can also share with you a survey. I usually try to send out a market research survey like at least once a year to my email list. So I can give you, I'm like, if I can find wherever I put that one, I can give you my most recent one just so
Thank
you
you
can
so
see some
much.
of the questions. Yeah. Um, Let me look for that. I'll put it in my notes. And I'll send that in an email after. Yeah. Okay. And then I was just gonna touch on Erin, I just wanted to touch just because it's like near and dear to my heart, but just kind of the transition back into work. And I think Asma, this is relevant to you too, but just like I each of my maternity leaves, I hope this comes out well for you. Each of my maternity leaves like rocked me to my core and changed basically everything I thought about the world and like what I was interested in doing. And so like and I think this is true for any like moment that and I do think of like childbirth as like being a radicalization, right? Like anytime we like have these moments in time of radicalization, either on a personal level or in our business, or like all of a sudden you become engaged in politics, or all of a sudden you have a friend that's deported, or all of a sudden, like you have these moments that happen in time. You have a baby, someone dies, a relationship ends, right? Like we have these moments that kind of like rock the foundation that we're standing on. And the idea that your business would just like not absorb that rocking, that it would like not change in any shape or form during that period is like absolutely nuts to me. Like that, I just don't think that's possible. So, this can look a couple different ways. It can mean like you need more time, right, to get back into business than you thought you were going to. It can mean like the things you're talking about are going to change. It could mean the offers are going to change. It could be the amount of time that you have to give to your business is going to change, right? Like there's just like there's so many different opportunities, and I think like the biggest thing I suggest is like expecting that, right? Like expect that things will change. Don't expect them to stay the same, because when our expectations are not in alignment with reality is when we experience shitty feelings, right? Whether it's like frustration or fear or resentment or whatever. So just like expecting that this is going to be different, and like you don't know what this next version of the business looks like, and like that's really okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that. It's totally fine for it to be new or different, or for you to have periods in, particularly the first year of any major life event, like it's not going to be this like linear climb, right? Out of this like shift, right? We're going to have these kind of ups and downs as we move through it. Um, yeah, and the other thing I'll say, just like this is probably mostly just relevant to Erin, but like I found for me adding a second kid, I had way less capacity for caretaking for my clients. Like that was like, I really had to shift. That was actually, to Asma's question, that was like actually when the all group stuff ended. I was like, I cannot hold space for people in a group right now. Like I can barely hold the space that my two tiny humans require. As Erin's larger child falls on the baby and the baby is crying. Yeah, you're like, someone told me when I had a second kid, they were like, you're not actually managing two relationships, you're managing three, because you're managing your relationship with child one and with child two, but then you're managing those two children's relationship together. So it's actually three relationships you have to manage. And for me, like that really cut into my ability to show up in a caretaking way for other people. Like I just didn't have as much of it. Um, it has since rebounded, like now that both my kids are in daycare, and yeah, like I think it can come back around. But just to say, like, if you're like, I don't fucking care about your problems, dear client, like that's normal. And that's okay. And that will probably shift. Sorry for swearing in front of your child, your older child. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you have your earplugs in. Okay, good. Yeah. So hang in there. It'll continue to evolve.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And that's what I've been like trying to consider, similar to what Asma said. It's like I want to build more community. I'm craving that, but at the same time, like you're saying, it's like how much can I actually hold right now and what's my
Yeah.
capacity and yeah, how do you
Well,
balance that?
are you craving community for yourself or are you
I
craving to build
know.
community for people? Because
I
those are
know,
different.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I know. That's what I'm trying to like parse out too.
Yeah. I think that's important to think about too is like, do you just need more business friends or do you actually want to build community for your clients and customers? Because those are two like really different activities and they do not like mutually fill each other's cups. If anything, they like might drain the other cup if you're like not going about that right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, oh, we have Sharon coming back in. Okay. Let's see. What have I missed? Have I missed anything? We talked, Julia, you asked a little bit just about, do you want to tell me more about, were you talking about offer niching? Do you want to tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been talking to somebody that does kind of like sales coaching that I've known
Mm-hmm.
for quite a while, and like he's given me some good feedback, which is accurate. That like I've been pretty broad with my
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of times it just comes down to like if you have a website. I mean,
Yeah.
I've narrowed with time. It's definitely like
Yeah.
WordPress focused and but we do also do a lot of digital marketing support. It's really like anything technical. So I don't want to be doing that. And I
Yeah.
work with clients all the time where I'm telling them not to do that, but that doesn't mean it's not hard when it when it comes down to it. So I think lately, I guess I've been thinking about maybe my niche being people who have like effed up WordPress websites specifically, especially using Divi and Elementor. So maybe like Divi and Elementor WordPress sites that are experiencing technical problems. And then once we have that relationship, like that's how I've been doing it in the past couple of years is like that's the core. And then we can offer other services if it makes sense. Um, but I'm trying to get away from just like making social media posts for somebody that,
Mm-hmm.
we're not actually doing tech support for as well. The concern I have with me having chosen this niche, I'm not 100% committed yet to like this being the narrow thing.
Mhm.
One issue is that it's kind of like a temporary state. So people move past technical
Yeah.
difficulties ideally.
Yeah.
I mean, we have maintenance plans. So that's the idea, is to get people into like maintenance and proactive, like manage. I kind of think about it as like home organization for your website, like actually
Mhm.
like cleaning stuff up, making things work the way they're supposed to. Um, but also it's not, it feels a little hard to speak to people because they can be any kind of business, they can be any
Mm.
kind of person. So it's different than, for example, um, focusing on like e-commerce shops that do a lot of
Mhm.
blogging, right? Like bloggers that sell other people's sell resell products is another
Mhm.
like category of businesses that we've worked with in the past. And those folks have like their content creators, they're like, they have a niche interest, and they're just like a
Mhm.
little bit more, they have, there's more of a profile, and that I could see that being a little easier to,
Mhm. Mhm.
but also I'm having some commitment fear.
Well, I will say anything you commit to, so like going back to those like zones of control,
Yeah,
anything you commit to, you can uncommit
I
from,
can
right?
change.
Like
Yes.
you can literally change anything except having a baby is like, or maybe killing someone, I suppose. Like those are the things that I'm like in my head. If it's not one of those two, then I'm like, I get to go back on this if I want to. If I don't like this, I can change course, right? And like, thankfully, I really like my children, so we didn't have to worry about that. But yeah, it's like, and if it's as long as it's not something permanent, you can go back on it. Like you can, what I like to do is give myself like a time domain. So I'm like, I'm gonna try this for, I would say a minimum of 90 days,
Mhm.
right? I'm gonna try this for 3 months. If I'm not happy at the end of 3 months, I get to reevaluate. This is true for like any marketing or sales strategy. It's good to give it like a solid 90-day try
Mhm.
before you ditch, because some strategies and some of these types of things like take a little bit longer to get going. So you might start to see results at like day 80 and you're like, "Oh, okay, that was worth like the effort of putting in." But that way you're also not like trapped in something that's not working for too long. Like 3 months is not so long that you've like thrown away the whole year, or you
Right.
can't like try something else, right? Like, so, what if you decided like, okay, I'm giving myself a 90-day container to try this specific niche. I'm going to go like all in on my marketing on this niche and see what happens, right? God,
Yeah.
I've tried like so many different niches for my business over the last 7 years, and like it,
That's helpful to hear.
oh yeah. I mean, it's like constantly, and even right now, I'm like slowly working towards like an evolution. I'd really like to be I have my first co-op as a client. And I'm like, I love this. This is so much fun. And so I'm like, I'd like to get more co-ops, right? And so like I'm not going to throw my whole business out with that idea, but like I
Mhm.
can start to slowly evolve to like I'm building a separate page just for co-ops on my website, right? And so I'd also think about it of like sometimes niching can be constricting, right? And so like you don't have to constrict too much. Like it's okay if there's um maybe we have three niches, right? We have three separate categories that people can
Mhm.
fall into. It doesn't have to just be one. Like it's nice if we get to a place. Is your cat laying like a baby? I
This
love that.
cat is the best. Yeah.
I
He
just see
likes
the
to
like
be
four little
cradled.
feet sitting up, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my
He
gosh,
does
that
a lot.
is hilarious. Babies
Keep
and
her
kitties.
motivated.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I usually suggest folks try to get to a place by like year 3 in your business. You want to try and get to a place where you've got 3 revenue streams. Yeah, like ideally, our eggs are not all in just one basket. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have I do build websites in a partnership with a graphic designer. So it's like we have a
Mm,
separate website for that, and I think I'm trying to shift like that messaging over
yeah,
there. And then
yeah.
of course the two could overlap. I guess one of my anxieties also about the tech support angle, which partly I like because it's so cut and dry. It's like people, if they need it for sure.
Hmm.
And it's also very clear whether or not I've been successful. Like, is the error still there or not? But I'm worried a little bit that I'm limiting myself because I think once businesses get a little bit more established and a little bit bigger and have bigger budgets, they're not really having these technical issues as much. I think that's
Hmm.
people would be getting more into like custom functionality and things like that, which just kind of feel like I've been spinning around and around about what I want to specialize in. That's not like that does have a little bit more future growth in it, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Are you familiar with like the let's see if I can do this. Can you see this whiteboard?
Yeah.
Cool. Like this idea, I'm like going to be really good at drawing. Meow. So like basically what would one version of business that folks follow that can work really well is you've got like offer one at the top here appeals to the masses and quote
Mhm.
masses, whatever your masses are. And
Mhm.
then, offer two is like 50% of offer one qualify to drop into this offer. And
Gotcha.
then and then offer three is like the most expensive
Mhm.
and maybe only like 15 to 25% of offer one folks fall into here. Or this is like a very specialized offer for a higher, like for like a larger firm or something. So, you could think about it this way too, that like, and this is true, I know Joanne's gone, but like the idea of like free stuff, it's like, I can help lots of people if offer one is my office hours and it's free, and I can help lots of people doing that way. And then, 50% of people who attend office hours become a one-on-one client, right? And they drop into this like working with me for 4 months. And then for me, like there's no more advanced step than working with me one-on-one. Like that is the end of that journey. But offer three for me is like I go to nonprofits and I run programs for them, right? And so I can charge a lot more money than an individual can afford. But I only have three clients a year that are doing that, right? It's like very small
Mhm.
percentage of people and it's high, it's expensive. It's expensive work. So this is where it's like, this is what I mean by like eventually getting to a place where there's like three things that are happening. Maybe one of them is free, maybe it's just low cost, but you
Mhm.
could start to think about like, are these standalone or do these kind of funnel into each other in some capacity? um that can be a nice way to get like more life out of like a particular engagement, right? So like someone isn't only purchasing from you one time, they're like continuing on with you, like at least a percentage
Yeah.
of them are. Yeah.
Mhm. Great. That's really helpful, actually. Thank you.
Oh, okay, good. I was like, sometimes this is can be like I don't know, sometimes people have seen this many times and then other times it's like a new idea. um but yeah, I would think about that of like Um, the only downside to this sometimes is like when we get into like periods of like we can't live usually off of offer one
Hmm.
unless you have like hundreds of thousands of people engaged in it. And so we just have to make sure this jump from here to here is like doable for enough humans.
Yeah.
If it's not, then this doesn't really work. And that's where like sometimes you'll see people start to blend like for me, I blend B2B, B2B and B2C in my business. I like do both channels so that I can hit this one here because there's no like I'm already maxed out on what offer two costs and like I can't charge more than what it is. So I have to find another way to make money here.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. All good things. I would say like I hear a little bit from you, a little of like the cart before the horse, like you're worrying about things not working before trying them. And I would say like go try them. Go try some. Go try some things. Have fun with it. Like don't worry too much about what you're not in control of and like focus on what you're in control of right now and like you're in control of however you want to niche. So like go try it and see what happens.
Sure.
You can always undo it. You can always try something else if you don't like it. And I find like there's no business model. Like, how do I get out of this thing? There's no business model that you can build right now that is going to be the business model you want to be in 5 years from now or 10 years from now. Like that's just not possible. The business will evolve as you evolve. Like that's just normal. So don't worry too much on like, is this really where I want to be a year from now or 5 years from now? Like, where do you want to be right now? What do you want to do right now? Like, we still want to have some futuristic thought to it, right? Like, we don't want to just like totally be all over this place of throwing spaghetti at the wall. But like, yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about like, what will this look like down the road?
Yeah, and I think what I'm wanting to do is like have a little bit have things be less energy intensive, and we are doing a lot of maintenance plans, and like tech support is always the reality of life. So it's like no matter what we do, we are going to have to do tech support somewhat. So it does feel like that it's not hard, it's not something new I have to try. I'm already trying it and I can just see how far I can take it before like worrying about next thing. Cool.
Awesome.
I always love a diagram. Thank you for that.
Oh yes.
Super helpful.
I love to draw when I can. Well, it was so nice having you all. Thanks for coming. And like I said, I'll send all the links that I mentioned, as well as like those screenshots from the survey I took, as well as my own survey. I'll send those all out. And then our next office hours will be March 6th, just like February 6th. That's funny. 2/6 in a row. And so hopefully I'll see you there. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Sharon's tiny human.
Thank you. Have a good one. Thanks for holding space.
Yeah, always. All right. See you all soon.
Thanks,
Thank
Emily.
you. Bye.